So let's put our hands together for our next top performer, Mark Banini.
Wow. What a rush. Okay. I am so humbled to be here. You guys have no idea. And I'm a bit nervous, so kind of bear with me. Thank you, Simon, for inviting me on stage. This is massive for me. And thank you guys. Every one of you has seriously helped me. So I'm going to talk very briefly about myself, my journey, and then a few lessons that will help those coming next. So a little bit about me. So I've been a financial services consultant for 25 years, a long time. And I have an MBA from City University Business School, as it was then, it's now CAS. I'm a qualified program manager. And prior to coming on Mastermind, I had no property experience. So just a little story about how I ended up on this particular course. So this would have been November 2017. I was 2 years away from paying off my mortgage. And my current banking client, I'd taken a cut to come there. My boss knew it. So I went to my boss and said, I've got to leave. I've got to find circa 100K and you're not paying me what I'm worth, so I've got to quit. I'm really sorry to leave mid-project, but I have no choice. She said, and I quote, Mark, there's another way. What are you talking about? There's another way. I'm going to quit. You're not going to keep me. No, seriously, Mark, there's another way. Come and join me on this property course. I'm like, what? Hang on a minute. I'm not doing a property course. I've heard about these cults. She said, no, this is Simon Zutshi. And I was like, who's this Zutshi character? I'm not doing that. Anyway, to cut a very long story short, this was, I said, November. Between the November and the February, I read about 30 books. I don't like going into stuff knowing nothing, feeling like an idiot. So I read about 30 books, not nearly as many as Volta. And so I felt I knew something. Interesting enough, I didn't read Simon's book at that particular point. I read it after. But I joined the Mastermind Accelerator course in the February, and I was blown away. I just didn't know you could do this with property. I had no clue. And it was like a light bulb went off, and I thought, that's my way out. I don't have to do a job that I'm falling out of love with for the rest of my life. So I signed up immediately for the program. Now, I'm going to talk very, very briefly. Most contractors will know the concept, or I'll use my words, of safety money. So that's your money you put aside, your living expenses, 6 months living expenses or so, in case work doesn't come. I spent a big chunk of that and I didn't tell anybody. So I decided I spoke to Dr. Tim, who's at the back. Big shout out to him, because I basically did what he did. He took, for a different reason, but he took a period 6 months after paying, and then joined 6 months later. So I didn't join the April course, which would have been MM25. I joined MM26 in October. And in that period, obviously, I was lucky enough to get coaching with Billy, but I'll come on to that. So, why do all this? My reason why, my two babies, I'm not allowed to call them that, my two daughters, they're much older than they are in these pictures, but they keep me on the straight and narrow, keep me on my toes. My family, my extended family, I do martial arts. Also experiences, that was the Monaco Grand Prix, and I think that was Usain Bolt's final race. And then obviously holidays, traveling. So ultimately, all of this is about freedom. This is about being able to spend time with the people I want to spend it with, do the things that I want to do when I want to do it. And that's that's what's kept me motivated, because this has been one hell of a roller coaster. So at the beginning of the journey, so we're talking April 2018, I said to Billy, my coach, who we'll talk about him, he's phenomenal. I wanted to achieve financial freedom within the first year. Cash flow was my priority, because I wanted to be in a position where I could quit if I chose to. Purchase over rent to rents. I didn't really want to do rent to rents, but I will come back to that. Buy and hold. And I wanted to be as hands-off as possible. And I wanted to build my foundation before JVing with people. So it's now, as I said, it's April 2018. I'm coaching with Billy, so I'm not getting the education. The course didn't start till October, so, and Billy's like, do what Simon said. So at this point, by the way, I actually read Simon's book. I have read it 3 times since then. I read it in the paperback, because we got it free in Mastermind Accelerator. I read the Kindle version, and then I read the Audible, which is actually my favourite. If you listen to Simon 2 times speed, it's incredible. Anyway, so I followed Billy's advice, which was basically, get out, do your landlord letters, get out, talk to people, do your viewings, meet estate agents, talk to people, get to know your area, look for those motivated sellers. And so I didn't really do as much of that as I should have done. To be fair, I worked 60 hours a week, so I didn't have as much time, and I know that's a terrible excuse, but I didn't have as much time as I should have done. Plus the fact I have maybe pathological is a bit of a strong word, but I do have that fear where, you're the landlord, you're the landlord, you get a call at 3 o'clock in the morning, oh, my boiler's gone. And my typical response would be, and you want me to do what? Which I know is not the right attitude, but I just didn't really want to be a landlord. So anyway, so why am I here? So I was struggling, if I'm honest. The coaching was absolutely brilliant, but I was struggling. So 5 months in, after doing everything that Billy had said, so meeting people, talk to people, go to PIN meetings. And in fact, it was at one particular PIN meeting that a chance conversation, and I remember meeting another guy in the pub. But these 2 conversations basically got me, so remember, this is month 5 of 6 of coaching, month 5 and a half. Within the space of about 4 weeks, I got not 1, not 2, not even 3, I got 8 rent-to-rent serviced accommodation units, which kind of blew me away, to be fair. And I was so chuffed because I didn't have tenants, I had guests. So none of this nonsense about boilers going off. I had guests. Again, that's going to come back and bite me, so I'll talk about that a bit later. But, so I've now, the course is just about to start. It's October. I didn't attend the October session, I was away. So it's November, and we're getting all this information. Loads and loads of stuff. There's a lot of talk about HMOs. I'm thinking, ugh. In the meantime, I had a really, really tough time with a couple of my service accommodation units, which some of you know about, and I was losing an awful lot of money. That was a very, very stressful time for me. So I rang Billy and basically said, my strategy was going to be service accommodation. Yeah, I've changed my mind. I'm going to do HMOs. I didn't really want to, but I was sick to death of service accommodation. Oh, great. I knew it was going to happen. Sorry. Panic over. Thank you. So yes, I was going to focus on HMOs. And Billy laughed. He said, I kind of warned you about service accommodation. However, what are you going to do? So I said, well, given the issues I had with one of my operators, I'm only going to focus on HMOs in areas that I know the agents, so that I don't get, shafted. But I didn't know anybody. I didn't know any agents, but I did know some people here that were doing their HMOs and were going to have an agency. So I spoke to Volta. I said, I'm going to find HMOs in Leeds. I'm going to brand them, your brand, you manage them. I did the same, where is he? With Will. So he was based in Gloucester, Cheltenham, Worcester, Red Door Homes. I said, right, I'm going to find properties there, you manage it. So I work, as you know, full-time. Difficult. I only got up to Leeds once. I went down to Gloucester once. And obviously I was looking in London, didn't know any agents, but I thought I'll manage it. Don't worry about that. I had to rely on sources. Now, sources can be really hit and miss. So I struggled for a couple of months. Didn't really go anywhere. And at this point, again, I'll just put it out there, I stumbled across commercial. So just bear that in mind for a second. So it is now June, July. It was late June, early July. And I had my mentor meeting with Kirsten, who was phenomenal. It was a game-changing meeting, 2 days. We met in Croydon, since it was early July. I met in Croydon. I had a viewing that I wanted to show. It was a hotel that I was looking at. And then I took it to one of my serviced accommodation units where we just sat and spoke about my journey, what I wanted to achieve. And a couple of things happened at that. I've done it again. A couple of things happened at that particular time. She basically said, look, Mark, when you speak about HMOs, you're kind of down here. But when you talk about commercial, your energy just goes through the roof. Why are you wasting time looking at HMOs? You don't even want to be a landlord. Again, another light bulb moment. I thought, well, yeah, absolutely. This is my journey. And, you know, you don't need to feel guilty about not doing HMOs. You know, you don't need to feel guilty about doing commercial. I mean, Simon doesn't teach commercial, but he doesn't teach service accommodation either. So, you know, just go do it. So that's kind of what I did. I was very, very lucky in that I also met a commercial surveyor who, I suppose, took me under her wing. She's there's this thing with commercial properties. At least this is my experience anyway. Commercial surveyors and commercial agents, they're like a secret club. So there's a lot of deals that you never get to see. They just don't go on the market, and they kind of share them between themselves. So I think certainly now, with the relationship I've built with the commercial surveyor and some of the agents that I've met subsequently, these deals are coming to me, and that's an opportunity which I'll talk about in just a second because it's one of my first case studies. So imagine when I called Billy to say, hey Billy, do you remember I was doing HMOs? I'm now doing commercial. I swear to God, he pulled his hair out on the phone. So if you see him now, he's kind of shaven a bit like me. To be fair, he was brilliant. He was really, really supportive. He's been, he's just been my rock because he challenges me and makes sure that I'm on the straight and narrow doing the things I'm supposed to do. There was one other thing, which I'll talk about just before I go into the first case study. One of the things about HMOs, and we've heard some tremendous stories here about some of the work that some of the guys have done. For me, it was July, and I realised even if I was to buy an HMO, particularly if you buy in London, it's a 3-bed, convert to 6, because typically the numbers don't stack. But that's, you know, buy 3-bed, convert to 6, then tenant. That's a 6 to 9 month play. I was never going to make the numbers. I just wasn't going to do it. So another reason for not doing HMOs. So at this particular point, we'll move on to my first commercial deal. So this actually came about on my birthday. So this is my first property. So this is a shop, fishing tackle shop. The landlord, or the owner, I should say, it's a freehold property. The owner basically wants to retire. So I've got it on an option for 179,000. We're negotiating with a tenant now to put a tenant in, and the way it'll work, and this is partly because of the next deal, is that I will buy it empty, put the tenant in. We're negotiating a rent of 24,000 a year. And again, without going into too much detail about commercial valuations, but with a conservative 10% yield in this area, the valuation will be around about 240,000. So all in, as a purchase at 179, there'll be 18,000 left in the deal. Net cash flow, and again, this is quite important with commercial, and this is another reason why I love commercial. I think Sean mentioned it, that basically all your costs, maintenance, even insurance, will be paid for by the tenant. This is a 10-year fully repairing and insuring lease. So basically your gross is your net, less mortgage costs. So that's going to net cash flow £1,100 a month, and that's a return on investment of 73%. The next deal, and actually this is my favourite, this particular deal came about post-auction. It didn't sell at auction. It's quite funny, really. So it's a bar and restaurant downstairs with a 7-bed boutique hotel upstairs. We got it at 385. If you put a commercial property in a residential auction in London in the middle of July, now, to be fair, I had to Google where Cleethorpes was, but, it's not going to sell. It didn't, which was a huge benefit to us. This is, has a stepped rent of $49,000 a year. So it's 48 this year, goes up to 49 next year, and then up to 50,000. It's a 10-year lease with 7 years remaining. And again, with a stepped rent, conservative 10% yield, it's worth 490. So once we've, so I'm doing this on bridging at the moment. When I refinance, there'll be 42,000 left in. Net cash flow of 26,400, which is 2,200 a month. That's a return on investment of 62%. So this one's my favourite just because it's so simple. And here's the other beauty of all of this, is cash flows immediately. So this one is the one that I'm desperate to get over the line, and I will briefly talk about this one. So this is, again, it came off market, direct to vendor. This is a large conglomerate that's looking at divesting a lot of their properties. As I said, it's seven retail units. It's got a residential upstairs. 6 of the units are let. 1 of them is vacant. The residential's sold on a long lease to a housing association, so you're not going to get any rent there. The 6 units currently generate 62,000 a year. Now, with a bit of asset management, so basically let the vacant unit, and then there's some leases that are coming up for renewal, so 5 to 10-year leases. You can extend those leases. The income should go up to 70k, and you're going to get a capital uplift when you refinance of around about 140,000. This deal is ongoing. I'm looking for finance, so who do you know who? Now, just go back a second. If I get this deal over the line, this is huge for me, and I will come on to why. So my numbers for the year, if we talk about exactly what I've got so far, the 8 rent-to-rents, the 2 properties I've bought, a net monthly profit of just over £6,000 a month, an annual profit of nearly 75k, and a GDV of just under £750,000. So, now assuming, touch wood, I get the Walsall deal over the line, ideally within the next few weeks, give or take, I would have done 11 projects, the 8 rent-to-rents, and the 3 that I would have bought. That would, I would have raised investor loans around about £575,000. That would bring my net monthly income to just over £9,000 a month. It's £112,000 a year, and the GDV would go up to 1.48 million. That's a hell of a ride, hell of a rush. So I'm kind of desperate to get over the line, so come speak to me after if you can help. So hints and tips, lessons. So as Billy would say, and it was mentioned, I'm a management consultant, so strategy doesn't quite fit for me, business model, but know it, focus on it. This program has been said before, is so much more than property. It's about mindset, it's about belief. If you can believe, you can do anything, trust me. Stretch yourself, step out of your comfort zone. I've done that many times, and I know a lot of people have too. This one's quite funny. Follow the process and use the tools. I'm going to say this, but I'm a bit of a contrarian. I kind of don't do what I'm supposed to. So, but what you should do is use the forum, use the Facebook groups, work with your coaches, work with your mentors, do the webinars. It's massive. The learning is huge. And use the group. Communicate with everyone. Tell everyone what you do. I said it was a chance conversation, a meeting at a pin. I got the sort of serviced accommodation units, which I said I'm pleased to say now they've turned around because I've got a decent operator that's not ripping me off. Sorry, I shouldn't have said that. Never give up. Persistence is everything. Never, ever give up. A key thing, you're going to get some great learning when you join this course. You guys will know that. But if you don't take action, it doesn't mean anything. So take action and do it daily, because step by step by step, you'll get where you need to go. And most importantly, have fun. Hell of a ride, guys. Have fun. So, in terms of pipeline, I'm going to quickly rush through because I think I'm a bit over. So, this particular deal is the car phone warehouse unit is, the lease is, it's under a year, which means you'll need to buy cash. It's owned by the same vendor, so there's a potential that you could buy both properties. I'm looking at this one just because, again, the potential with the lease, either get car phone warehouse to extend or get a new tenant in is huge. So that's a potentially nice deal, and it's a nice deal for one for you, one for me, which again I'll come into very quickly. This one's very similar to the Cleethorpes deal. It is, and this one's on 2 different titles. It's got a hotel and restaurant as well. 2 split titles, again, really, really good for one for you, one for me. And this particular one, so this was brought to me by a very dear friend. It's a hotel in Croydon. It's 18 rooms that we're looking at turning into HMOs. You know who you are. So the reason why I think he brought me in on this is because this is the way we're looking at, rather than doing it as individual HMOs, HMO rooms, we're looking at putting it on a long lease. That's kind of my thing. I kind of like that. We're trying to work that through. So that's the pipeline. So for me, what's next? So touch wood. In the next month, when my contract ends, I will be in a position where I can say yay or nay. They may choose to renew, they may not, but I will be financially free, which is huge for me. So I'm going to take Christmas off. I'm going to have a hell of a party. I'm then going to do some housekeeping, formalise my business. Going forward, I'm going to be sourcing bigger deals. As I said, I seem to have been invited into this sort of commercial surveyors club, and I'm just looking at bigger deals. For that, I'm looking at working with partners and investors. I don't want to work with everybody. I'm only going to look for 10. I want them on speed dial, my little black book. As soon as the deals come in, I need guys that can move quickly. So that's kind of what I'm looking at next year. I will be doing some joint ventures. The one for you, one for me idea kind of works for me because it gives you an opportunity to get to know the people you're working with before you kind of metaphorically jump into bed with them. So 2020, my plan, and so if you think that from, I suppose my commercial journey started really from July, I should be able to quadruple what I did this year. And that's going to be my aim, to try and quadruple that. I'm going to continue my education. It's been huge. And finally, as Walter said, I want to be in a position where I can give back. So to summarise, if you think 18 months ago, I didn't have a property, I didn't know anything about property. I'm now in a position where I'm financially free. I'm, again, touch wood, if everything goes well, generating 9.5k a month. That's £112,000 a year. And I'll have a GDV, or my portfolio will be worth 1.5 million. So, if I can do it, you can do it too. So, some very, very brief thank yous. My family and friends, I've hardly seen them, but they've been with me all the way through. Billy, phenomenal coach, and Kirsten, coach and mentor, absolutely brilliant, game-changing. And I'm running out of time, so I'm just going to skip through your names. If you've not been mentioned, I apologise. But there is a big shout-out to MM26, to every one of you who's helped me. I've had some dark times and you've been there. To Alyssa, thank you. I'm not great on Facebook, as you know, and every call that I've made, it's like, can you help me? You were very patient with me, so thanks very much. And lastly, to Simon, for creating this environment where we all have an opportunity to learn, to stretch ourselves, and to be better than we can be. Thank you.